Hello everyone, and welcome back to another 10-minute Smash Concepts video. I know I didn't record one for a couple weeks. My computer stopped working, so I wasn't really in a position to record as much as I wanted to. But I figured today the concept I could talk about would be adaptation, because that's something that a lot of players have talked about my particular skill in related to other players of around my relative skill level. And I think the biggest part of adaptation that can be difficult is the willingness to accept the chance of failure that comes with changing what you're doing. Because if you don't change what you're doing, it can feel like it's easy to generate a lot of excuses for yourself. Like, oh, if I tried harder, or if I practiced more, or I was just doing the same thing over and over again and I lost. Like, you can shift your perspective on it. If you're doing the same thing over and over again and you lose, it's like, yeah, what did you expect? Like, did you think something else was going to happen? But by adapting, you open yourself and your ego up to failure in different ways, and ways that might look stupid to your opponent or stupid to yourself when you're watching later, or even in the moment. Because you have to be willing to try new things, and you have to try something that's different. You have to break your muscle memory, and you just have to you have to do something else. So when I'm trying to adapt to an opponent, usually what I'll try to do is I try to notice patterns in their gameplay, and then I try to see if I can incite the patterns on purpose, or if I can break the patterns. Now, when I say incite the patterns, what I mean is is there a situation that I can set up where my opponent will do the thing that I've noticed them doing in their pattern? So, for example, if I have an opponent who likes to, I notice they like to spot dodge, or they like to roll in, then to try to get them in a position where they could spot dodge, if I see them shielding, I would maybe dash dance in front of their shield and wait for them to spot dodge. Or if they like to spot dodge on wake up, then I would try to knock them down. And if they like rolling in, then chances are they like rolling in from out of the corner. So if I can push them to the corner or throw them into the corner, then I can wait for that roll in that I was looking for. And to break the pattern, the other thing that I mentioned is basically trying to get your opponent to notice that the pattern is happening in a way that's strange enough that they'll feel that they have to do something else. So, for example, if my opponent likes to roll in out of shield or spot dodge out of shield, and I can get them to shield in the corner, then standing in front of them without doing anything will look weird enough that it ticks the part of their brain that notices, okay, something weird is going on. So when they do that roll in, they're a lot more likely to feel stupid about it, or they're a lot more likely to try to do something else. And pushing your opponent out of their comfort zone can be very, very valuable, because they're having to try to come up with new things on the fly that they're not as comfortable with. So, if you can do anything to convince your opponent that whatever is in their comfort zone is not what they should be doing, then you already kind of have a slight advantage. So this is one of the reasons that I like to use very strange tactics, like doing things like walking around the stage or spot dodging repeatedly, is because it pushes people out of their comfort zone, and that familiarity means that they have to try to adapt. And a lot of players generally just have they have their set play, they have the things that they like to do, and then they'll kind of cycle between them. But if you can put them in a very, very strange or unfamiliar situation, then they'll have to try to come up with something, and that's usually a lot harder to do than just cycling between the different things that you like to do. So there are real adaptations, and then there are sort of just the adaptations that I was just mentioning. So, for example, if you have a Fox player, then they might have their 3 patterns of gameplay, and their 3 patterns of gameplay could be one where they use the platforms a lot, one where they like to use grounded movement a lot, and then one where they're trying to full hop a lot and play engagements off of full hop. So that player's idea of adapting might be when seeing that one of them isn't working too well, they might try the other one. And then if that one doesn't work too well, they'll try the third one. And if that doesn't work too well, they'll go back to the first one and be like, oh, well, I guess I tried all of my tactics. I don't really have anything else to do now. And then at that point, they might try to come up with like a fourth one on the fly, something like laser camping, that sort of thing. But if the player isn't as familiar with that, then they're not going to be as ready for the mix-ups that the opponent is like going to try to present from that point forward. So what I like to do when I have enough time to prepare for a set or for an opponent is that I'll come up with a regular game plan, and then I'll come up with like a second game plan. So as soon as I'm like doing my regular game plan and I notice the opponent is like starting to catch on to that one, then I can switch to the secondary game plan. They'll get distracted by that. They'll start focusing on that, thinking about that, and then I can go back to the first game plan when they're not ready for it. That's just something that I like to do to try to keep opponents off of their rhythm. So, for example, like if I'm playing Fox against a Jigglypuff, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do like really hard short hop double laser camping. Then when my opponent starts catching on to that and they start like moving in between the lasers, or they start shielding them and then going to platforms, that kind of thing, my secondary game plan might be something like going to top platform and light shielding, because it just like gives them something to think about, and it's a strange tactic, so they're going to be thinking about that instead of the laser camping. And then if I can kind of like fill their mind up with questions about like, oh, is she going to go up to the top platform, or is she going to try to laser camp me, then I can go into like my third game plan, which is just my regular gameplay, where I like to, you know, like interact with the opponent and try to pressure them and read what they're doing. And then by like switching between all of these, I give my opponent so many things to focus on and think about that they get just like completely overwhelmed and they don't really know what to do anymore. And the thing is, a lot of it is really just smoke and mirrors, because like you don't have to worry too hard about the laser camping. And if you like already have answers developed for laser camping that don't really require you to think, then you can just kind of execute the game plan and you don't really need to worry about it. But it takes advantage of the fact that a lot of players like to feel like they're trying to figure things out on their own. So you can just like sort of occupy their mental space. This sort of strategy does not work against players that don't think really at all while they play, or think about just like completely unrelated things. Like if they're totally distracted from the game, or they're thinking about something else, then this just doesn't do anything at all. So I find that I can sometimes struggle against that kind of player. But against that kind of player, if I'm trying to adapt, what I'll try to do is, since they don't usually play very adaptationally, I'll just try to figure out what the main thing that they're doing is, because usually they're going to do the same thing every time. So if I can find like a good, clean answer to multiple of their tactics at the same time, then I'll just set that up and I'll just like do that pretty much all the time. I won't do it like all the time, but I'll do it like 80 to 90% of the time, because that way they won't really be exactly able to notice like that I'm just literally doing it all the time. Like when you catch on to an opponent's habit, it's good to have multiple different ways to do it, like to take advantage of that habit, because if you just do the same thing over and over again, it gives them more chances to adapt. It's more obvious what you're doing. So like if I notice that my opponent is like jumping in with Fox short hop nair a lot of the time at the exact same timing, then sometimes I'll pivot grab the landing lag, and sometimes I'll try to like catch the jump before the nair comes out with like an up tilt or like a chic forward tilt, that kind of thing. And sometimes I'll just let the nair happen and then just like run around it, like don't directly punish it, because that way your opponent will see that it's like at least sometimes safe to do. But then by the way of like just neutral breaking, I'm kind of getting off topic here, but by neutral just breaking there, then your opponent is already in a more unfamiliar scramble situation that you haven't directly engaged with, which gives you like an additional upper hand. I'm at like 9 minutes here, so I guess to wrap this up, let me try to recap what I've said so far. Switching between different game plans is good. You can trick opponents who like to think in that way by just like giving them a lot of different things to focus on, to sort of like smoke and mirrors your way out of them paying attention to like actual things that would beat you. And also, if your opponent is doing a lot of stuff that's really tricky, you can kind of sometimes just like execution your way through it. Like you can just focus more on your own game plan instead of trying to figure out what they're doing. And if anyone wants to hear any more about any of this stuff that I talked about, I feel like this was a little bit less focused than the last two that I made, but still a lot of good information in here. If anyone wants to hear more about any of those topics that I mentioned, just put it in the comments, I suppose, or message me anywhere that I can be messaged. And join my Discord. It'll be in the description. And thank you to my patrons for making this video possible. Hope everyone enjoyed. Thanks. Bye-bye.